Oke, bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Halo everyone. Di sini kami dari kelompok 4 ingin mempresentasikan hasil diskusi kami tentang film form naratif avant-garde and documentary. Langsung saja tanpa basa-basi. eh, Langsung ke bab pertama. Diskusi yang pertama yaitu naratif akan disampaikan oleh Saudari Lusiana Pratiwi. Nah,
Did you know narrative? Narrative form is the structure through which movies tell stories. When we speak of going to the movie, we almost always mean that we are going to see a narrative film, a film that tells a story. Narrative appear throughout media and society in novels, plays, comic books, television show, and even commercials. Narrative are most common in fiction film, but appear in all basic type of film: documentaries, animated films, experimental and avant-garde films, and short films. Narrative structure. First exposition is the meeting character, establishing the setting, setting the tone, establishing the normal of the film world. Second, rising action is the central conflict is introduced and the tension between the protagonists begins the mount. The third is climax, is the turning point which mark change for the better or the worse in the protagonist's future. And the last is falling action, is the major action has happened. This is the aftermath. This is the sorting out of the major conflict resolution. The example from the film The Wizard of Oz really stick to this structure seen through protagonist Dorothy journey from Kansas to Oz and back to Kansas. She goes on a journey with the wizard, meeting friends along the way and tackling obstacles such as the Wicked Witch and the West. When finally the situation is resolved by Dorothy having the power to get home herself, in which she wakes up back in Kansas, her equilibrium, nothing is, she is glad to be back. Second is character. Narrative films generally focus on human characters and their struggles. Characters are typically responsible for cause and effect in narrative, and this is a character from The Wizard of Oz. Diegetic and non-diegetic elements. Diegetic elements are everything that exists in the world that the film depicts, including everything implied off screen. Example like setting, sounds, characters, event. And non-diegetic elements are elements within the film, but not within the film world, such as credits, music, or voice-over narration. Characters are unaware of these elements. And there is the story and the plot. The writer transforms a complete chronological story into an abbreviated, recognized version of events that plays on out the screen for the audience. Often the differences are referred to as story and plot.
And the second, it's avant-garde. Avant-garde. The avant-garde is an extreme artistic movement, unconventional with respect to the dominant art, society, or culture. The avant-garde push the limit of what is accepted as status. Mainly in the cultural war, the avant-garde is regarded as a trademark of modernism. Numerous artists have allied themselves with the avant-garde movement and continue to do so, tracing history from Dada to the Situationist and postmodern artists. The avant-garde promotes social reform not accepted in society or still perceived as utopian. In reality, the avant-garde, with the passage of time, seems only an artistic current the anticipate the time which fight on the front line to create new. The power of the arts undoubtedly the fastest method for social, political, and financial reform. Characteristic: the first experimental film with a small budget, typically from the filmmaker's own budget, and the second, typically non-linear narrative, non-traditional film, usually told by the filmmaker's point of view without any message. The third, typically an experimental film with conscious use of medium to create eccentric, dream-like sequence. The fourth, respect art, culture, and poetic or lyrical. And finally, focus on surrealism, abstract, and impressionistic studies. The example, avant-garde films are known from their originality, their precise and dedicated attempts in reinventing what we think we know about how films construct and communicate meaning to the audiovisual experience. Take for example, some scene in the movie Ritual in Trafigured Time by Maya Deren, the data from this scene. The movie has no narration and only goes according to the flow of each scene. However, the audience is forced to have their own thought about the intention in the movie. This can add a new experience for the audience.
Okay, and the last, we will talk about this documentary. Documentary film are film that document even facts and facts. In the documentary film story, there are no fictional elements that are deliberately made for the sake of dramatizing and storyline. The term documentary film was first introduced by Robert Flaherty on February 8, 1926. At the time, Robert released a film called MUNAJA, which described a non-fiction story. In this journey, documentary film are often used as a medium for social criticism with portraits of dark things that are impossible to show in other film genres. In addition, documentaries are also often used as biographical film or film of a character. The types travel documentaries. The first type of documentary is a documentary travel report, which is commonly used by autographs. And then historical documentaries are the type most frequently encountered by audience around the world. And then biographical documentaries are also the most common type found on the market. Big figures, especially public figures, often get the spotlight from the camera. And then nostalgic type documentaries are actually closer to history. And then reconstruction. As the name implies, reconstruction documentaries provide a complete reenactment of event that occurred. And the last, investigation. Many investigative films are made by journalists to expose the truth of an issue. This is an example from film in the Sunless movie. And then characteristic of documentary films. Documentary film are non-fiction film which distinguished from fiction film. There are 4 criteria that explain that documentary is a non-fiction film. Namely, 1, every scene in a documentary film is a recording of actual event without the imaginative interpretation that are common in fiction films. If a fictional film has a scene background setting, the documentary background must be spontaneously authentic with the original situation and condition, as is. Number 2, what is told in the documentary film is based on real event reality, while in fiction film the contents of the story are based on fiction, imaginative. If documentaries have creative interpretation, then fiction film are imaginative interpretations. Number 3, as a non-fiction film, the director observes a real event, then records the image as it is. And the last, number 4, if the story structure in fiction film refers to the storyline or plot. In the documentaries, the concentration is more on content and presentation. Thank you. And do you have any question? You can comment di bawah ini. Thank you. Oke, itu tadi presentasi dari kami. Apabila ada kurang lebihnya, mohon maaf yang sebesar-besarnya. Billahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.